Hello there and welcome to my little video about Jacob Marley. Well, the ghost of him, he's dead, so we're gonna focus on him returning back in his ghost-like form, just in case the examiner asks you about Jacob Marley in your exam. Right, so just like normal, I'm going to go through all the points I would be making. I'm going to pick four nice simple quotes in chronological order, layering up my interpretations, and I've color coded my interpretation so you can see where I'm hitting all parts of the mark scheme. So, how does Dickens portray the character of Jacob Marley? Well, Jacob Marley he's the voice piece of the central message of the whole gig, in that it's never too late to change. Jacob Marley comes and he invites Scrooge to be that change. Now, he represents the emotional and the spiritual punishment of living as we do, for in our afterlife we will always carry the burden of the choices we make whilst we're alive. Now, this is a central quote for Jacob Marley. Mankind was my business. And in my view, it kind of operates on two levels. On the first level, it's talking about how mankind was my business in life. He used mankind as his business. He squeezed money from them for profit, and he paid minimal cost back in return in terms of supporting the society that he was making money from. But then also, in death, he laments the fact that mankind was my business. He wanted mankind to be his priority, and he wanted to dedicate his life to making mankind better. So that quote there, 4 words, it very much operates on 2 levels, and I think that's a nice little introduction into Jacob Marley. So, what points would I make? 4 points I'd be making. The first point is that from the outset, Scrooge does not see this ghost as any positive or any good. He sees it as a force of harm. Then we see how Dickens is using this Christian concept of purgatory to give Scrooge a second chance, a chance to make life better. And we've got shun the path I tread for that. Jacob Marley famously is in chains, and when those chains are a symbol of his lifetime's greed. And then he disappears off out the window and he joins hundreds of other different spirits, also all in chains. And therefore Jacob Marley is not just one individual, he's one of many. And you and I, we will go and join them if we do not change our ways in this life. So, quote number 1, like a bad lobster. Now, if people don't know what a glow-in-the-dark lobster looks like, there you go. There is a glow-in-the-dark lobster. And when lobsters go bad, bacteria sticks to them and they glow. So, that's what this is all about. So, Scrooge goes home. The door knocker is glowing. And Dickens used the words that it glows like a bad lobster. So the fact he appears in the door knocker shows that Marley and Marley's entrance into the book, well, this is the entry point for Scrooge into a new life. And the same way you would use a knocker to enter into that new part, that new life, this is Scrooge now entering into kind of chapter 2 of the Scrooge life. Now, bad lobsters, Scrooge misinterprets this as something that would cause harm. If you ate a bad lobster, yes, you would be very, very, very poorly, which is why they tend to cook lobsters from being alive, because they go very bad very quickly. And if you eat shellfish that's past its best, it ain't great for you. Well, and as I said previously, bad lobsters do glow, and the Victorians would have been very used to glowing lobsters. They didn't have any fridges in those days, so if anyone who had a lobster, if they weren't eating it pretty rapido, it could be glowing with the funky bacteria all around it. Now, although Scrooge is interpreting it as a bad thing because bad lobsters, are bad for our guts, well, light is a universal symbol of hope and guidance. Light in any text, in any literature, is going to represent a positive thing, something to go towards, a hope that things can be better. So, although he sees this as something really threatening, this actually could be the guidance that Scrooge needs. And Scrooge is a representation of all of us. We can all be better, we can all be kinder, we can all be less greedy. So this bad lobster light is actually the hope and the light for all of society to move forward to a better future. Next up, we've got shun the path I tread. This is what Jacob Marley says. He kind of says he's come back to see Scrooge to save him from the path that he treads. So he's visited Scrooge, saved the punishment he suffers beyond his life. Now we've got Dickens tapping into this Christian idea of ghosts, that spirits can only return to earth from purgatory, which is like the waiting room between heaven and hell. They can return from purgatory if they've got unfinished business. So Scrooge, who represents all of us, as I just said a moment ago, he is being, like, we are all being visited from beyond our lives to give us all a chance of redemption, give us all a chance to be better. Following that, not only the Christian belief of ghosts returning, but also that Christian ideal that we can all forgive, we can all be better, and we can all look after each other. Shun is something that's really easy to do something. Shun is not push away, or it's not force away, it's shun. You can shun something quite easily. So it shows that it's human nature to choose kindness over greed. It's not something that's particularly difficult for us. And finally, we've got the word path. Paths go to destinations. There's never been a path that goes nowhere. Paths go to different places. So although that we choose our path and we're in our control of our destiny until we choose the path we're going to go on, but then now we've only got one path here, the path I tread. The consequences of the choices are irrevocable. Okay, so we have to get the choices right, because the consequences will be immovable from the choices that we make. Paragraph 3, so our second to last paragraph now. This is a very classic quote. Lots of students around the country will be using, "I wear the chain I forged in life," but it's a banger and there's loads we can say about it. So his chains symbolise punishment that he now suffers. If we think about chains, we're thinking of people in prison, jail, maybe thinking of slaves. So Jacob is a slave to his unquenchable thirst for more money in his life, and now he's held prisoner, not physically prisoner, not in like a prison of bad people. He's held prisoner by his conscience, because he's full of regret and shame because of the damage he did whilst he was alive as a greedy businessman. Now we repeat, I wear the chain I forged in life. And a key part of what Dickens is talking about in this book is about our personal responsibility. Now he makes this loud and clear here, because of this repetition of I shows that it is us alone who make the decisions, and therefore it's us alone that must bear the consequences of them. Chains were of metal, and again, this is the guy who dedicated his life to the financial greed. But this pursuit of money, this pursuit of things that are worth money, such as the metal of chains, shackled and burdened us. We've got no need for this burden. We've got no need for this valuable metal around us. We need to share that valuable metal around to everyone, so we're all part. Remember, chains can also be a great support for us. Chains have anchors on the end of them. Chains for your plug in your sink. Like, chains can also be a great support and help for us in our society. So don't let it shackle you. Don't let it be a burden in your afterlife. Share it around so we can all use it as the help and support that it could potentially be. And finally, we're going to talk about fear a lot when we go through Christmas Carol. Jacob Marley is saying this to Scrooge because he wants him to fear the afterlife. He doesn't want him to think it's a great thing. He doesn't want to paint this beautiful picture of pearly gates in heaven, because the threat and the fear of the afterlife is what drives Scrooge to make the change that he does. Dickens is showing that fear and that panic and that worry, that's what can be the difference and be the thing that changes us. Now, when he leaves, and the air was filled with phantoms, and every one of them wore chains. So there's many others suffering the way Marley is. The fact that so many of them shows the widespread greed of society. It shows that, for some of them are chained together, shows that our individual greed collectively punishes us all, because everyone being selfish and everyone sorting themselves out mean we all as a community do not do as well as we could do. And Scrooge is destined to be one of them. And Marley makes the point that Scrooge's chain is even longer and more heavy and burdensome than his own one. Now, chains limit our freedoms and what we're able to do. So they all now want to make a difference, and it makes a point in the book about how these phantoms are trying to help the poor people. There's a lady and there's a kid on a step, and these phantoms are trying to help, trying to support, but they can't. It's too late. So therefore, Dickens is telling us, don't waste this chance to get it right in life. Don't waste this chance to make a difference. Now we've got some alliterative filled with the phantoms. Now that at the start, when Jacob Marley turned up, Jacob Marley made a point of, or Dickens made a point that Jacob Marley's entry was met with deaf, cold eyes. Now this idea of the cold runs through quite a lot through our book, especially when it comes to Jacob Marley. So it's this cold truth, this uncomfortable experience of realizing what Jacob Marley is telling us and what his message is, and that accompanying terror of that is what drives Scrooge's change. And that could be the shaking of fear, or it could be the shaking in the cold of what he's seeing. A last point on here, if you wanted to think about something quite high level, is Dickens refers to these people out in chains. He says that some of them are guilty governments. Now, it might seem a bit strange on first look about why government would be up in chains in the afterlife, but Dickens hated the poor law, and this was an attack on him. The poor law, essentially, at its core, was how can we get rid of, or how can we look after the poor people with as minimum financial cost to us as possible, and that's where the prisons and the workhouses and everything came in. So this law was driven by greed, it was driven by a desire for money, and so therefore all the government who are responsible for that, they will all be punished. Okay, that's my piece on Jacob Marley. I hope it was helpful. Revise hard, good luck, and I hope it goes well for you in your exam.